a very warm welcome from Delhi. The three of us are also in very different locations, but I am from Delhi, and it's just beginning to become much warmer than the very severe cold waves that we've had. And salam namaste to everybody here. I can see at least one familiar name there from Kutch Mahila Vikas Sangathan. So special welcome to you, because I've been in Gujarat for many years. That's where my karma bhumi has been. And I hope to make friends and with many more of you who are new to us. And I'd like to begin by thanking Rise Summit to make this opportunity for us to offer this masterclass. And what we're going to do is give you a short intro about our organization, a very brief one, and just help you, as the title says, unpacking gender transformative evaluation. So that's what we are going to help do over the next 2 hours. We want it to be very, very interactive, and we would like all of you to jump in with your questions and your comments, and that will make the interaction live and more fun for both us, and hopefully for you as well. So a very little bit about ISST. ISST stands for Institute of Social Studies Trust. This is a 40-year-old organization that was set up by Devki Jain. And in the 40 years, its main focus has been to visualize the contribution that women do in the field of work. Women's work is never counted. Women themselves don't count their work. So way back in the 1980s, when the organization started, there was no means of calculating the work that women do. And there was no way of, because you relied on the reporting, right? Most surveys rely on self-reporting. But even our societal norms constantly are telling women that you don't do anything. So when a surveyor comes, the woman is likely to say, I don't do anything. And that's what gets captured. Whereas in actuality, we all know, many of you who have been in the field who know that women really have very little leisure time. They work from dawn to dusk or late night, perhaps. So the focus of the organization was really to see how we bring this out through data, through evidence, and through working with a lot of on-ground organizations. At that time, they worked with the Chipko Andolan, Seva, the lace makers of Narsapur, of a lot of informal sector workers, street vendors, domestic workers, home-based workers, construction workers. And that has been the mainstay of the organization. In the last 20 years, we've also started working in a community in East Delhi, where we focus on providing learning center, a safe space for children and adolescents. So with that, that talks about the breadth of the kind of work we do. In the last 5 years, ISST started working with moving into the field of evaluations, because when you're doing research with a gender lens and you have research methodologies that are amenable to capture the voices of women, capture the nuances that exist in a society, we had honed those skills. And then that was kind of an easy switch into saying that how can we use these skills in evaluation field to bring the gender lens? Because very often evaluations are critical and are important to tell us whether we are getting where we wanted to get to. But even within that, are we capturing the voice of the women, the marginalized? And so how can we use the techniques in research to help us also inform evaluations? And that is how this term facilitating gender transformative evaluations evolved. And ISST has now been working in this field for the past 5 years. We have several books and tools and manuals that are available as to how do you make your evaluations more gender sensitive and gender transformative. And we've just completed our 5th iteration of our online course, which is meant for early and mid-career professionals. It's a 10-week course. We'll share the link with you later on for you to look at it. So with that, let's begin. I want to also welcome Alpakshi and Sheena, who have been with us on this journey practically over the last 1 year. And they have both been actually alum of the course. So it's great to have them, see through the course and then join us to take the idea forward and to amplify it. I'm the director here at ISST. I have about more than 30 years of work, largely in Gujarat and Maharashtra, but have traveled across the country for various projects. My focus is on empowerment of women, women building women's leadership, and to see how we can really amplify voices of women on the ground to inform policy and practice, and looking at what is it that they require and how we can use it through research, through teaching, and through on-ground work. Alpakshi, if you want, can then introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Alpakshi. Like Janvi already introduced, I was the alum of this course, but now I am an individual consultant and I work with ISST. We are designing another part of this course, which is for senior professionals. This course is yet to launch. It will come sometime in the mid of this year, hopefully, and we will keep you informed about this course. That is what I am working on with ISST. But today we are here to discuss, basically unpack just gender transformation and evaluations. We understand that we have people from various backgrounds and probably working with gender in various capacities and in different segments of their life. And we just want to come to a common page of understanding, if not debate, discuss our ideas together. There is nothing right and wrong. So want to just flag that everyone should feel free to discuss their thoughts, ideas, opinions, and let's all come together to unpacking some of these terms. So I think without taking any more time,
shall we have Sheena introduce, and then we can start.
Sure.
Hi everyone, this is Sheena Kapoor. I work with ISST as a research consultant for the last 1 year and had been managing the 5th iteration of the Facilitating Gender Transformative Evaluation course, which we have successfully completed, and we'll be having our closing ceremony soon on the 14th of Feb. And all of you are welcome to join that as well and see how the participants and what the participants have learned and how they are applying those tools and methods that they have learned in their practical life. Over to you, Alpakshi.
Yeah. So the flow of this presentation will be that we will first start with unpacking gender, and then we will go to unpack transformation, and then we will unpack evaluation. So I'll start with gender. And I feel all of us at some point of time have come across the term gender at least. And let us discuss through some of the examples of what your understanding or how you view gender, or what you think, your first thoughts that come through few of the pictures that will come up on screen. So, Sheena, next slide. Yeah, this is the first slide. And I think it will be very nice to hear from you if we can keep this interaction very interactive, and if we can hear your thoughts and we discuss, I think it will be fun. So any thoughts on this picture? We can take a minute here to think through first thoughts. Any thoughts?
Yes, I just wanted to check if will the participants be able to speak up, or will they have to type in the chat?
उस दिन का भी नहीं लिख कर आया
So I think you all can use both. I mean, for now you can use the chat as well. I see Saurav has already typed in the chat. So anyone wants to use the chat box to share their thoughts? Thanks, Mamta, for starting the conversation. Traditional roles assigned to women, correct? I mean, yes, we can see it that way. Any other thoughts on seeing this picture? So these are The figures are all in black, but Mamta could easily associate it with women, gender biased roles. Thanks, Mamta. Anyone here who wants domestic work completely? Yes. Care work.
Acts of care, yes.
Yeah. Acts of care. Anyone else here who wants to express their views, thoughts? Do we associate
as Karen keeps saying about this summit, that this is all about conversations. This is all about having interaction, and only that makes this masterclass. Although it's called a masterclass, but we want it to be far more interactive. So we'd really invite many more of you to be active and jump in. There is no right and wrong, as Alpakshi has said. We're all here to learn.
Anyone else who wants to share? Okay. Do we associate these work with any particular gender? Thanks, Nupur. Various roles played by superwoman. Okay. Interesting.
True. So
yeah. I think most of us have mentioned women. So do we associate these work with a particular gender? I think the first image I can see as caring for the sick, the needy, old. Roles which are treated as non-productive in the family assigned to women. Completely not. Sheena, next slide. So let's discuss some of these. So like I asked, do we associate certain work with certain gender? Most of you have already mentioned women, but can you give some more examples of these kind of work? Any examples that come to your mind? Caregivers, yes. Okay. Why do we associate certain work with certain gender? Unpaid work, yes, we'll come to unpaid work. That is exactly my next point. Then I'll make this question even more specific. Why do we associate unpaid work with certain gender? Any idea why?
ये कौन पूछ रहा है? क्या पूछ रही है?
Why do we associate certain work?
So nursing, cooking, cleaning, housekeeping, correct. So all these are unpaid care work, which we often associate with a certain gender. And it is both an important aspect of economic activity and an indispensable factor which contributes to the well-being of the individual. Sheena, will you mute yourself? Yeah. So it's both an important aspect of the economic activity and an indispensable factor contributing to the well-being of individuals, their families, the societies. Yet we keep this major chunk out of policy planning. Do you agree? Any example? So a lot of the policies are just built on the assumption that women will do the care work. Do you agree? Say, I'll give you an example. So say, for example, the paternity leave. Oh, yes. Nupur, do you have any example? Thank you for responding. So when companies give 1 week of paternity leave, what do we expect? Yes, yes. Thank you, everyone. So most policies actually assume that women will do the care work. And these are like policies like the paternity leave, right? Like, so we expect women to take on most of the care work, and this is assumed because you've just given a week to the men to go out and take help with the childcare responsibilities. So this unequal distribution of caring responsibilities is actually linked to discriminatory social institutions and stereotypes on gender roles. Now, this gender inequality in the unpaid care work is the missing link in the analysis of, say, gender gaps in labor incomes, labor force participation, wages, job quality. And this actually rises out of gender norms and stereotypes, which is actually the first step in redistributing the responsibilities for care and housework between men and women. Do you agree? So we will talk more about gender norms and gender stereotypes here. But what happens to this kind of work when, say, for example, COVID-19 strikes? Any idea what happens to care work when, or what happened to care work when we had COVID-19 and there was a lockdown all over? Anyone here? So the care work increased, yeah, it greatly increased. And this actually pushed a lot of women out of the economy as well. So around, I mean, this is not COVID-19, but overall around the world, 42% of women can't secure jobs because they are responsible for caregiving. Women and girls undertake more than 75% of the unpaid care work in the world. And in 89% of the household, women and girls perform the majority of the household chores. So this is all because we associate certain work with certain gender, completely share, overburden on the woman for care work. This is because we associate care work with women, and this is something that we have built as a society. Working women were specially supposed to balance both, completely focus on domestic work, increasing women's load, right? So this is double burden increased completely. So this is the gender role that we are talking about. Here, the gender role or behavior basically is considered to be the appropriate behavior that we associate to a particular gender, determined by, say, the prevailing cultural norms or anything, right? So we all agree to the last point then, that does it have anything to do with gender? It does, right? These are gender roles that are actually, you and I are a part of the society that builds these. So here are some more stats that globally, girls aged 5 to 4 spend 160 million more hours every day on unpaid care work than boys of the same age. And this disproportionate rate increases in intensity in adolescence and adulthood. So here's the stat. Yeah. So now women work from home became more
and I think
strenuous.
as Mamta is saying, that work from home became more strenuous for women due to everybody working from home. Yep.
Right. Completely. So here is another, say, situation. This is completely different, but I don't know. This is a scene from a recent Bollywood movie. The film is Thappar. Have you guys seen this? Sorry.
What is the film?
It's called Thappar.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you guys seen this movie? Seen the scene? Read controversies around it or anything? Please come in. Or if you haven't seen the movie also, does anything trigger to you when you see this picture? Any thoughts on this picture? I'll pause for half a minute.
What do you think is happening in this between this girl and the guy? What do you think is happening?
Yeah. Not yet. Okay, that's fine. Just like, let's talk based on the picture currently. What are your thoughts on this? Is this something normal and common, this picture? So if you haven't seen the movie, however, looks like the actor is scolding the actress. Yeah. So this is basically before the actor like deposits a thappar, which is a slap on Tapsi Pannu, Amrita's cheek. And what happens after this scene is even more interesting, is that they discuss how she goes to her own mother, and her own mother says that women have to learn to tolerate this violence to keep the family together. One has to suppress their own feelings and be a part of the family. And when she goes to her mother-in-law, the mother-in-law says, how is he doing? Is he doing okay? Could he sleep well? So this is just giving you an over-romanticization of toxic masculinity. Yes, completely.
Yeah, Alpakshi, I think that, there is a lot of conversation that's happening on the movie Kabir, because this slide talks about Kabir Singh movie.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. This is a Kabir Singh. I'm so sorry. Yeah. From the Kabir Singh, yeah. Absolute toxic relationship, completely, yeah. So do you think there is an expression of power based on gender here? Is this a part of intimate partner violence? And have you heard about intimate partner violence? Yes. Thank you everyone for being so prompt in the discussion. So what are the forms of intimate partner violence that you can think of? So there is obviously physical violence, but there is also emotional violence, and this role could be seen as threatening or scolding. These are all forms of intimate partner violence. And somewhere where I am, that there is power associated with gender, right? And we often associate power, this is again gendered behavior that I am about to talk about here. So gendered behavior is actually a fundamental expression of gender identity and gender socialization. And gender socialization is something that develops for an individual throughout their lifespan, right? It occurs as the individual navigates through the social environment, develops views that defines gender for themselves. They grow up seeing things, and the socialization process occurs right from birth. As a person observes differences in gender in terms of roles, behavior, and what constitutes, and what in their head they think is appropriate and how they should behave. And this is an example of a gendered behavior. Thanks, Shreya. Yes, the forms of violence could be emotional, physical, verbal, financial. Yes. Can we move on to the next picture? Yeah. This is again a completely different thing, but how do we see power when a woman holds it? The first picture is of a sarpanch, woman sarpanch. And the second picture is of a Ardern when she recently resigned.
Are you able to see the captions? I don't know whether the screen is bigger for you, but are you able to see the caption which is below the BBC News, below Jacinda Ardern's picture? Maybe we should read it out.
So I'll read the caption now. Jacinda Ardern resigns. Can women really have it all? Any thoughts on this? On this to picture? And how we see power when women holds it? In the last picture, we discussed about power and a particular gender holding more power than the other. But when we flip that and when power is held by women, what happens? And how do we see it? Thanks, Shreya. Any thoughts on these two visuals?
Yeah, as people are just seeing this, in case we have any participants from other countries, a sarpanch is the head of a village council, an elected head. And these, in India, we have had an amendment which allows for 33% of these positions to be reserved for women candidates. So we do have a large number of women who are elected as village council heads.
So anyone here who wants to share anything? So what are your thoughts on this, on the way BBC has framed the headline? Can women really have it all? Should we move to the next slide, Sheena? Yeah. So is there a reluctance or skepticism to give power to women? What? Yeah. Do you think there is a reluctance or skepticism to give power to women? And this power could be any power. Like here we are talking about the Sarpanch in particular and Jacinda Ardern in particular, but we could talk about any form of power. Power to be part of the decision making in the family. Yes, Shreya, correct. So Shreya writes saying that I'm surprised to see a woman Sarpanch actually address a crowd, primarily because most of the female Sarpanch have Sarpanch Pati. Sarpanch Pati is a phenomena which is common in India, where actually the decision make, although the woman is a Sarpanch because of the amendment that Janvi has talked about, where it is required 33% representatives to be women, but most of them actually don't hold the power to decide, and they actually decide based on what their pati or their husband decides for them. And then you call them the Sarpanch Pati. So the power still lies on them, with them. Power to even make choices for their own lives completely. One example of this balance in policy is Women and Child Development Department clubbing with women with child. Completely, yes. So when we allocate budget and when there is a budget calculation done, when we look at women and child development, Ministry of Women and Child Development, we then bring in all women and child schemes together, and then we say this much is the budget for women. Correct. So I will talk about another interesting. So do we see the biasness of institutions like media, when they say, can women really have it all? And do we often see women at the top at all? In most of the, say, organizations, in most of the decision-making bodies, or not only women, do we have other genders representing in the decision-making processes? Right? So here is an interesting example that I'll talk about. That so to be in the local bodies, there is a minimum educational qualification for a woman, which is class 8 for women from general category and class 5 for SC/ST category woman who is contesting for, say, Jila Parishad, Panchayat Samiti, or a post of Sarpanch. However, for an MP or an MLA, there is no educational requirement. Do you see why I was talking about reluctance or skepticism to give power to women? So here are institutions like the political machinery, the media.
If you can hit enter, I think that text will come up.
Yeah. So here are institutions like the political machinery, the media, who play a role in actually pulling back women from actually being in the decision, or show skepticism for women being in the decision making, right? So is this related to gender? It takes me back to the question I asked in the last slide. Do we associate power with a particular gender? Or is power given, or is more power given to one gender? Any thoughts before I move to the next picture, which will be my last picture? Can we move to the next picture, Sheena? Yeah. So here is again a completely different thought or a picture, where there is a woman who we see having a nutritious diet, plate of nutritious diet in her hand, taking care of her health, and there is a woman farmer on the other side. So when we close our eyes, or if we go out there and ask mass to draw a picture of a farmer, will we draw this picture? If all of us can remember our school textbooks, the man with the plow, right? Do we often see this picture? Do we call women farmers? Any thoughts on these realities?
How many of you have seen women farmers? You can type in, if those of you who have been working maybe in the development sector, or those of you who travel around in rural areas, have you seen women farmers? Or we associate women with laborers, but men as farmers.
Also, any thoughts on the first picture? Is a good and proper nutrition a reality for most women around the world? Not farmers, but agricultural laborers. Okay, thanks, Arav. We don't call women farmers, but we see them as agricultural laborers. Any other thoughts? So what about other food behaviors that happen in the private sphere? Say, for example, we cook meal, grow vegetable, women laborers and man farmers. Thanks, Mireli. Yeah. So what about cooking meals, growing vegetables in, say, the small gardens for supplementation, consuming meals? Yes, but mostly these women farmers are aiding the agricultural work, with a very low percentage of these women actually owning the farmland completely.
Yes, but the question is, why do we associate o- being a farmer with ownership of land? The question to be asked is that who made this rule? That is ownership of land more important to be called a farmer? We need to, question that and say that, okay, where is that a gendered reality as well? Who set this norm?
Yeah.
Yes, Mirel. True.
Yeah, completely agree. So anyone wants to give more examples of gender norms around gender and food overall? So gender norms often keep women from economically and politically powerful positions in the public sphere. Say in the case of, say, food production, despite their work in both the public and the private domains of food production, right? Say, for example, cooking meals, growing vegetables, consuming meals, keeping food for animals for sustenance, informal trading of, say, eggs, milk, backyard vegetable gardens, keeping of chickens and eggs. Do we associate these with a certain gender? Are these work counted in the economy? Do women or any other gender hold power in the agro industries? What is the percentage? So here's an example. In the sub-Saharan Africa, 80% of the food, women produce roughly 80% of the food and provide household water by transporting it from pumps, wells, and waterways. Though critical to family welfare, subsistence farming remains invisible to the economy based on policy and economy-based policy measures. Since gender norms dictate that private food production be done by overwhelmingly by women, carrying water in particular is seen as work for women and girls. Cooking and preparing agricultural food and processing crops, even for selling, is done by women, but the selling and marketing again goes to mostly men. Exactly what I was trying to bring out here. Sometimes even the income is controlled by men completely. So this is where I was talking about gender norms. These are gender norms that I wanted to bring out here. So we can move to the next slide here. And what I wanted to basically do through the pictures is basically discuss what is gender. And like we wanted to unpack gender here. So gender refers to the characteristics of men, women, girls, boys that are socially constructed.
Next slide, please.
Yeah. So this includes norms, which we discussed in the last slide, behaviors, which we discussed, and roles, gender roles, which we discussed in the first picture, of associated with being a woman, man, girl, boy, as well as relationships with each other. As a social construct, gender varies from society to society and can change over time. And also people who identify with the gender that they are assigned at birth are called cisgender. So like I said, the first picture was an example of gender role. The second picture, the first picture meaning where we talked about the caregiving responsibilities and all. The second picture was an example of gender-based violence. was an example of gender-based behavior. And in the third, we discussed the gender. In the last picture, we discussed gender norms. Now, going ahead, what we will discuss is, this is just to unpack a little bit of what gender means. But going ahead, we will discuss how do we change it. Let's talk about transformation. How do we know what is changing and what is not? Let's talk about evaluation. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking part in the discussion, and let's carry on with our discussion in the chat as we go ahead. Over to you, Janvi.
Thanks, Alpakshi. Yeah, so we wanted to basically give you a glimpse of, if we have to look at gender transformative evaluations, we need to begin at the very basics of what is gender and how do we define gender, right? So these was just some examples that you cannot ever take gender norms, gender-based behavior for granted. And you have to constantly keep that question going. In fact, I find that even after 30 years of my work, when I go into meetings, I still have to ask questions. Where are the women? What are the women doing in this? Why are there not enough women on the panel? Why are there not enough attention to what is women's needs? And I think these questions continue to remain foundational and very, very critical. And that is why perhaps it has been said that it's going to, while we have in the SDGs, we say that, leave no one behind. But at the same time, the Secretary General, Ms. Fumzile, has said that it will take us another 500 years to change, to get to gender equality, if we look at our own track record of what we have been able to do since the UN Charter got established. The UN Charter itself in 1948 said that we need to talk about equality. And from there till now, the way we have progressed, if we keep the same pace, it will take another 500 years for us to get to where we are, to be able to say that we are truly gender equal. Now, do we have that time? Do we have the patience? And is it fair to wait for so long for half the humanity to have an equal chance at what it takes to realize their full potential? And so that is why it's important that we talk about gender, although it sounds very simple, it sounds very, now everybody talks about it, everybody talks about patriarchy, but where does it make a difference? How do you find the fine tools and the methods to say that, okay, now that I understand it, what do I need to do? And that's why we need to talk about what we call transformation. This is again a term that the feminist movement has come up with. It's used in many spaces. Management is also uses this. In leadership, it is used. There's a particular way in which the women's movement uses transformation. And so we want to spend a little time talking about transformation. So next slide. Yes. Is change and transformation the same? If some of you can give a response on this. No, please hang on, Sheena. Please wait. Yeah. So is change and transformation the same? We can do with a few yes and no's. Those of you who feel yes, it is the same, please indicate. Those of you who say no, we're also happy to, please feel free to respond. There's no right or wrong. We're waiting maybe a few seconds more for some people to respond to this question. Is change and transformation the same? All right, great, wonderful. Interesting. Change is unforeseen and transformation is intentioned. Okay. Interesting. Thank you, Mirel. Yes, you're saying that Transformation needs more time as it is a process, and change can be small and can take less time. All right. Any more? Thank you, Mirel and Saurabh. Okay, so let's move forward. Yes, Sheena, if you can. So change and transformation are different. Okay, there is definitely a difference in the two terms. And so change is typically shorter term response to new external factors or evolving assumptions. So change is, they often say, is actually the only constant. So we need to keep changing. Why? Because the external environment changes, sometimes our goals shift. So there is something that is changing in the environment, and therefore our response also needs to change. And so it is based on the evolving assumptions. It can be small and incremental, or it can be large and complex. So sometimes you may have a takeover of, say, a whole company, Air India being taken over by the Tatas once again. So that's a big change. All right. And it could be a small change, is that, okay, in my today's routine, hang on, please wait for transformations as yet. Wait. Change can also be like, today morning, I'm not going by the normal route, but I'm going to go by a train, because the normal route is being heard that there's a traffic jam there. So there could be small change in my routines, and that's also change. So you could have big or small change. And let's now look at transformation. This is a far more internal and fundamental evolution of your beliefs of why you perform certain actions. So that is what is the critical difference in transformation, is that you need to look at, fundamentally start asking that, okay, why am I going at all? For instance, it's not about just going to by road or by going, by a train, but it's the fundamental question that, is my going required? When you ask those foundational internal questions first, that's the beginning of a transformational way of thinking. It's almost always large and quite significant, but as Mirel says, that it may not be visible until the whole process is complete. So you may not really realize that, say, for instance, the whole culture of an organization, you have a new leader, and the leader is far more, is not that authoritarian, is a far more egalitarian boss. And so the person changes the way in which you are supposed to, say, address the person, in the way in which you get access, the way in which information is shared. There could be small little changes that happen, but the transformation will be visible only when the whole process is complete and you start seeing that there is a difference in, say, the way, in the outcome, in the way all of the smaller changes add up to something. So that's when you call it a transformation. And so it may require some external influence to maintain, but it does require a foundational shift from within. So you may have some people asking you these foundational questions, but the external people or the smaller changes cannot change unless and until internally you decide how you wish to change out there. Next slide, please. So let's try and see how these concept of change and gender affect when we talk about gender. What is change when we talk about moving towards gender equality, and what is transformation when we talk about gender equality. So for example, I'm just going to build on some of the examples that Alpakshi has mentioned. So change is like you shift from unpaid care work of the woman to a paid worker. So you have a domestic help, wait, one at a time. For instance, you have a domestic worker. Now to help the unpaid care work that a woman of the household does. And you say that, no, we recognize that and she needs help. So let's have somebody else come in and do the work. But it is most likely to be a woman herself. So what you've done is you've changed the work from unpaid to paid, but it stays still with the woman. So you're still assuming that most of the care work needs to be done as per the gender norms. And therefore, you're not making any foundational shift. You're making a small change there. Let's look at the next one. So women come into positions of power, but exhibit very masculine ways of exerting their authority. Now, these are changes that you may have women who, come into positions of power, but they land up becoming more masculine in their way of exerting power, because what the society sees is that once you are power, you have the ability to influence what others do, and therefore you want to continue to control, and you need to want to define what others do or direct what others do. So you're not changing, you're changing from a male to a female position in the power hierarchy. So there is a change, and it's welcome. So it's not to say that change is bad, okay? We're not trying to say at any point that moving from unpaid care work to paid care work is not required. All we're saying is that that would fall under the category of change and not in transformation. And in a bit, we'll look at what transformation would look like. So for instance, women farm labor are paid better wages. So you do a lot of hard work, you do a lot of lobbying, and you insist that, okay, men and women should be paid the same for the same kind of work, or even if it is different work, but it's like you pay better wages. So these are changes that are happening in gender norms, or the way in which the society is looking at gender concepts or gender equality. But if we were talking about transformation, what would it look like? Next, please. So stay on this one. State sets up a well-organized, full-day quality childcare services for all working women. And now, so what you're saying is that why should it be only between men and women? Also, you say that, okay, somebody has to do the care work. Obviously, if you say that, okay, women will not do, men will do. But then both of them, their earning capacity is going to be affected. And doing this care work is critical so that people are able to, of the family, of the society, are able to get up and go and work the next day. If nobody is going to cook, if nobody is going to clean, if nobody is going to go to the, stand in the queues to get groceries or to get the PDS for poor people, and this is no food, how is the next day you're expected to go the next day? Your food is your indhan, is your energy. So care work is very, very critical for you to do to your productive work. But in a country, often productive work is only defined as GDP. And you do not look at all the unpaid care work that is going on right now, mostly by women, to support the productive work. And you're only calculating the productive work, assuming that somebody else is doing the care work, mostly unpaid. And therefore, a transformation will require that the state must provide for well-organized, good quality, full-day care centers so that young men and women who are in the workforce and who have children are able to put their children in these centers so that they are taken care of, and the state invests in these processes because the state is getting productive output out of the labor of men and women. So that would be transformation. And not just to say that, okay, men are also now helping. It's change. If men are helping in care work, that is change. It's not yet transformation. Next, please. New collective, even as I'm talking, if there are people who would like to type more questions or for more clarity, please do so and we'll pick it up. So when we spoke about, positions of power, what would transformation look like? Transformation would be that you have more collective, lateral, more open ways of working, which are based on co-creation and collaboration. This entire summit is premised on collaboration, people coming in, people sharing and growing in different ideas. So why should power be, top down? Why do hierarchies, organization function in these top down ways, assuming greatest power at the top and lesser power down below? Can we think of systems which are more open, which are more about based on values? Because you believe in the goodness of people. You believe that people would want to do something good with themselves so that something good comes out for the society. can we think about these, and rather than assume that, oh, all workers are going to, sham, all workers are not likely to show up, instead, and say that, okay, can we, have more open, in fact, in the opening plenary of the summit, we had examples where they said that, open hiring, anybody who's willing to work, just come in. NGOs often do that okay, we are opening this up from the community, who's interested in coming. You keep the bar pretty low, so that okay, 8 standard, 10 standard, 12 standard, whatever, and please come in, and we do training on the job, we grow and we move forward, and you keep the collective spirit for work going. That's what transformation would look like. Last one. So women are recognized as farmers and participate in decision making of what needs to be grown. So you don't need to say that, you need land ownership. Whether or not you own land, because you contribute to the farm, to converting seeds into produce, and you have a big role, women need to become part of the decision making. And therefore, recognition of farmer comes by the contribution of your work and by the decision making that you do in terms of what needs to be grown. There are a lot of examples today where collectivization is happening, where women are choosing to, and they've always in fact chosen to grow more of food crops. In fact, the data shows that almost 83% of subsistence farming is done by women across the globe. And subsistence farming is growing for food. It may be very little, it may be for their own consumption, but that's because, again, the gender norm is that women have to be responsible for feeding their family. And so it is of her concern, it is in her interest that she will say, I would like to grow the food. I'm going to stop here. Are there any questions? Are there any thoughts before we move to the film? Any examples you want to give of change and transformation that you have seen? And also in participation of women in post-harvest stage, where to sell the produce, where to store it. Absolutely, all decision making, Mamta, would become very, very critical for women, for us to define as to who is a woman farmer, that she is integral to decisions of, that, as they say, from the farm to the market, and the whole cycle. Then again, which are the seeds you're going to preserve? Do you want to grow seeds? You want to be dependent on seeds which are hybrid, which are so-called high productivity, but they're also guzzling lots of water. They are guzzling a lot of pesticides and a lot of fertilizers and water. How are women becoming part of those conversations is very critical. Some more responses, please. The budget has come. Every year we have a budget. So we always see some change, right, in budget, in tax slabs. But do we see a transformation? Do we see them focusing far more on the social sector? Do we see them looking at far more investing in poor? Yes, Shashikala, the hegemony of the representation of the word farmer itself is problematic. Women aren't unrecognized. Okay. Yeah. Possible. So would you suggest that a different name perhaps will be more inclusive? Correct, Mamta. All decisions. Yes, Mirel. Very interesting examples we can use in gender mainstreaming in our organization to show the technical team planning and designing projects that it is not only about the numbers of women engaged. Absolutely. Absolutely, Mirel. And, the course is all about diving deeper into how do you, navigate. I'll just give a small example. In fact, it is if you see the whole shift, right? We've moved from women in development, women and development, then we got gender and development, and we did gender mainstreaming. And I think we are now getting stuck in the gender mainstreaming construct, so much so that we are very preoccupied with numbers and not really about the gender norms, and not about foundationally changing why these inequalities still persist even after having the numbers. Ah, yes, Shashikala, true, true. And how do you change that image, right? So in your textbooks, if you are shown a picture of in a small child of a 4 or 5 year old is learning about, say, what are various types of work, you will typically show a woman next to a cooking stove, and you will show a man with a briefcase or working outside. How do you shift these changes at a very, very foundational level so that when we talk about farmer, we think not in a binary way of man or woman, it could be both. And changing these require, that's the transformative bit. It is slow, small, but it is long, and it has to be intensive so that eventually things change. Right. But do you need ownership to make decision making? Who made that rule? Can you still be a worker and still be a decision maker? We don't have to be owners. Now, these are also deep-rooted norms of a society. That if you own, then you have a greater say. But if you work, you have lesser say. These are the class distinctions. We need affirmative policy push. We need a social norm changing. We need to foundationally ask many more questions. Who decides that because I have a house in my name, I can decide? How many women who have names, houses in their names because the family wants to evade that 1% tax, which is often given as a way of increasing women's ownership of assets. It was intended with the policy that was intended in many states that if a woman is, if the property is in the name of a woman, then you will not charge them that 1% taxation. There is a rebate that you get. So a lot of families will say, oh yes, why don't we put it in the name of the woman, because you're saving that 1% amount going to the government. But do the women, even after ownership, have a say whether to give it on rent, what to do with it? Not necessarily. So policy push is one part of the solution. It changes a few things. It doesn't transform the whole system. In yesterday's budget, the Krishi Udyam Nidhi has been launched promoting rural agri startups. But we need to keep an eye on how many women are empowered and encouraged, mentored to use this budget by setting up excellent, perfect view of expanding the lens of looking at figures, looking at budget, looking at policy. Very good. Yes, they do. They do give her power, but you need to assist it with many other changes. You need to convey to the woman that we believe in you. We need to convey that she needs to believe in herself. And we need to do a lot more on that. And on that note, let's, see the film. It's a short 2.5-minute clip. I think that will help to build on some of the ideas that have come. I'm very happy with the responses. Thank you very much.
A gender transformative approach contributes to achieving gender justice and equality for everyone. How does it work? Imagine this tree represents our society. Each piece of fruit represents the opportunities we have as people, such as access to education, good health, or a stable income. Depending on your position in society, you can pick all the fruit you want, some of it, or none at all, if society denies you access. Many societies grant men a better position than women, making it harder for women to reach the fruit. This difference is called gender inequality. Whether you can access opportunities often depends on the shared norms and beliefs of your society. How you are affected by society's norms and beliefs can depend not just on your gender, but also on your health, social status, or your sexual orientation. Some of these norms and beliefs are root causes of gender inequality. Like the roots of a tree, harmful norms and beliefs can be buried so deeply that we sometimes don't know they are there. By exposing harmful gender norms, we take the first step in solving gender inequality. Discussing how some norms and beliefs can be harmful might be the most difficult step, as norms can be hard to recognize and people might not always understand nor agree about the implications for their society. The next step is to change these harmful norms into positive ones. A gender transformative approach contributes to gender justice by changing harmful norms, amplifying the voice of women, actively engaging men in combating gender inequality, embracing sexual and gender diversity, promoting access to human rights for everyone, and by shifting unequal power relations to more equal ones. By making all of its norms and beliefs positive, our societies can grow healthily and distribute opportunities more equally and inclusively. Then everybody has the chance to get where they want in society by accessing opportunities. Taking a gender transformative approach helps to achieve gender justice and equality for everyone. For more information and tools on gender transformation approaches, visit rutgers.international/GTA. A gender transformative.
Thank you. So I think that was a great way to summarize, why gender transformative approach. And of course, Medha, it is not easy because we are dealing with thousands and thousands and years of, these norms that have been so deeply embedded through our religion, through our school books, through our media, that there are so many fronts on which change needs to happen, and there will be challenges. And so one strong my own experience has been is that believe in collectivization, believe in collaboration with those who share similar ideas, helps to move forward. Collective strategies, collectivization, enabling the voices of those who are typically not heard, creating forums for their voices to get amplified, building their confidence, are all ways by which we can support one another and create societies that are based on challenging this top down hierarchical authoritarian modes of working, and where we embrace not just humanity but the whole planet. And we say that we need to look after not only the goodness of each individual but also this planet that sustains us. So with that, I'll just, and there's a lot more on this. So our courses, whether it is the evaluation course or whether we have the other course, which is on women in work, they go into much more details of these nuances and these challenges, because we have done a lot of study and we now have a lot of evidence on what is working and what is not. And so building on that knowledge, we our offering is a course, and say that, okay, how can we condense it and offer it so that it's goes into the ecosystem with all of you, those who are interested, and we take this movement forward. With that, I'll hand over to Sheena to speak about we've understood gender, we've understood transformation, and difference between change and transformation. So how do you know which one is happening? And over to you, Sheena.
Thank you, Janvi. So, before we move to evaluation and we talk about what's changing, what's transforming, there's something that I would like to highlight, which I've often seen people talk about, that they often associate, a negative image with evaluation. And whenever we say that we are here to evaluate, we often see whether it's a project, whether it's an organizational evaluation, people tend to get defensive, saying that, this is something that I was doing and this person has come here to judge me. So there's something that needs more clarity on what evaluation exactly is. So before we go ahead, may I ask all of you, what do you understand by evaluation? Anything, any response? Okay, let me ask another question. Why do we need evaluation? Why do we undertake an evaluation? Anything? To examine the effective relevance and based on these indicators, review the strategies. That's a good one, Mamta. Merrill says it's to review the project and see if we did what we said we would do. If yes, how? And if no, how we can improve later, to document findings and recommendations for the future. Thank you, Merrill. That was very comprehensive, I would say. My next question would be then, if this is evaluation, then what is audit? And what's the difference between an evaluation and an audit? Is there a difference or are they both the same? Yeah, evaluation is to measure progress, where we stand up, the criteria, to see what worked and what didn't. Yeah. Okay. Alpakshi, can we move to the next slide? So in simple terms, we can say that evaluation aims to assess the overall impact of a social change intervention against an explicit set of goals and objectives. It involves the systematic collection and analysis of data to help us discover if, how, and why a particular intervention or set of interventions worked or did not. And I see that most of you have already answered this in the chat box. So it's good to know that people do understand what exactly evaluation is. But when it comes to social audit, what and how it differs from evaluation is that it values the voices of the stakeholders, including the marginalized, poor, and it's participatory, where project information is collected, analyzed, and shared. It evaluates the performance of an organization as it relates to the attainment of its social goals. So, evaluation may or may not be participatory. There are different types of evaluation that are done, but where it comes to audit or a social audit, participation is extremely essential. It's one of the core components if we happen to do a social audit. Next. Merrill says audit is more quantitative and examines the numbers, whereas evaluation is qualitative. Well, Merrill, I will say that, yeah, audit is more quantitative, but again, evaluation is not just qualitative. It can be both. Rather, it is considered to be more comprehensive. If it's a combination of both, that is quant as well as qualitative, because both of them are used to see that that they complement each other, and they help you triangulate that whatever data that you're able to collect or find out using the quant is equally supported by the qualitative. That's how you would say that evaluation is mostly a combination of both. If you take it to be only qualitative, then you will happen to miss out on some important uh, factors and indicators. And similarly, if you take it only to be quant, then again you'll miss out on certain qualitative nuances which will not come out through just numbers. So if we talk about evaluation, it can be of various types. And it can be done at various stages: before the onset of a program, during the course of the program, and after implementation. So yeah, so before evaluation, a type of evaluation that we do is called an ex ante impact evaluation, where we predict what can be the likely impacts of undertaking an intervention before taking up a project, or before implementation begins. This is the kind of evaluation that we take in to understand the kind of resources that would be required in order to undertake the evaluation, the intervention and what could be the likely impacts of that particular intervention. Yes, evaluation could be baseline, midline, and line, but it's beyond these three as well. Like there is an evaluation known as process evaluation, which examines the nature and quality of implementation of an intervention. It not just tells you about what kind of impact that intervention is going to have, rather it talks more about the process of how that intervention is being implemented. Is there anything in that implementation process that can be improved? Are there any gaps that can be covered up? Or if we have to go for a next phase of that intervention, then it helps you understand what worked, what did not work, and how the implementation of that intervention can be improved. Next is outcome and impact evaluation, which examines the result of an intervention, which I think most of you have mentioned in the chat also, that these kind of interventions, evaluations generally help to assess how the intervention has performed, the kind of impact that it has had on the ground, and the kind of outcomes it has achieved. And then there are sustained and emerging impact evaluations, which examine the enduring impacts of an intervention. Sometimes these are done after it has ended. So at times when we have to, when the intervention has ended and we, want to assess how it went and, do we need another phase, or do we need to come up with something new to ensure or to check whether the impact of that particular intervention can be sustained even after the project is over, then we generally take up sustained and emerging impact evaluations. Yeah, and then comes value for money evaluations. This it has gained a lot of importance after it was brought in by DFID, I would say, wherein they try to measure, how the cost of an intervention and the value that it brings in, whether it's positive or negative impact. The value for money term was generally, made famous, I would say, through DFID, because they also make use of public money when they infuse in development projects. That's when they introduce this concept, and wanted more and more evaluations to have the value for money aspect included into it. Yeah. So why do we say that evaluation has gained importance in the last few years? So I'm sure you all must have heard the newer concept of social stock exchange, which was introduced last year in our budget by our finance minister. And since then, SEBI has been working on building up how the social stock exchange would look like and what all it would do. This would allow most of the NPOs to raise their funds through a common platform for which this is being built. But in order to do so, in order to be listed, the NPOs or the NGOs need to go through a process which is wherein they are evaluated. So there's a social audit that is to be done, and there's a detailed framework, published recently by the Social Stock Exchange, though still in the draft stage, but it talks explicitly about how social audit and evaluation are important for any of the NGOs to understand how going forward they can be rated, and this how it would help them to raise funds on a common platform, and what all indicators that will be measured are also explicitly listed under this framework. Another reason why evaluation picked up in the last few years was because government also realized that they have been implementing so many schemes, though they are being evaluated internally, but there's a third-party evaluation or a third-party assessment that needs to be done, which was undertaken through the DMEO at Niti Aayog, wherein government recently evaluated 250 done to understand, how the schemes are performing, what are the gap areas, what are the limitations, are there any leakages in that particular schemes, or is it that they are being, they are successful in certain locations, but they are not so much successful in other parts of the country. So all of that was a detailed assessment was done through of these schemes through a third party. This was kept as a third party because they wanted to keep it totally unbiased. And so that's where evaluation started picking up, because a lot of other CSR projects, bigger projects done by a lot of philanthropies also understood that, a third party lens is equally important. Uh, because third party means an independent evaluation agency is hired to do the assessment or evaluation of a particular scheme. So if I talk about it more, see, if I, let's say A is an organization who's implementing a project called ABC, so they often do evaluation and assessment internally, but while they do so, there is often a chance of having a bias or certain things being left out, because they don't have an outsider's view. To keep that outsider's view and to avoid any kind of bias, we the and let the A agency will hire an independent verification agency or an independent evaluation agency, which undertakes this evaluation in a totally transparent and unbiased manner, to help the organization understand how the project ABC has performed, what have been the gap areas, were there any limitations. So okay, so there's Shashikala is asking, who are they? Do we have info, or is it confidential? So there are organizations which do and undertake evaluation and assessment, like ISST does research, evaluation, assessments. Then there are big fours which take up development sector evaluation and other evaluations. So even if I have to mention some of the agencies which undertook this third party evaluation for government, Niti Aayog were as big as KPMG, Deloitte, IP Global, EY, Sambodhi. So there are a lot of organizations which undertake assessment and evaluation. Even nowadays, a lot of universities also have set up a research wing which undertake these evaluations. Like I mentioned, even ISST, being a research organization, has also taken up evaluations in the past and is also performing some evaluations currently. So these are basically agencies which have evaluation experts and research consultants as part of their team, who undertake these evaluations and who understand various frameworks, methods, and tools that are used in undertaking an evaluation. Next. So I'll talk a little more about these concepts through NRLM. So NRLM was a pilot scheme initially, which was launched through a World Bank fund in a few states. However, when the project started gaining, some momentum and there was visible impact on the ground, then the state governments, especially in the south, Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, which were the initial pilot phases, saw some push from the government's end, state government's end, which led them to flourish the SHG movement in the southern states. And the entire hierarchy was then developed in an NRLM structure, wherein initially they used to form SHGs and village organizations, leading to then forming cluster level federations. These are basically women based organizations and working with closely with rural women, wherein there was a concept of initially promoting savings among the group members, and then once a concept of saving is established, slowly helping them understand and micro plan what they could do with this fund, how they could internally do lending at a minimal interest rate of 1%, and then once their basic consumer needs are met through these internal loaning and they start repaying these loans. They microplan to understand how they can evolve and how they can improve their uh, livelihoods and generate more livelihood income generating activities. Once this movement saw some momentum in the south, it was noticed by the central government, when the central government decided to take up a similar project and cover all these small pilots into its ambit of NRLM and launch it across all states of India. So currently it runs across all the states in India. And over the period of 10 years, the NRLM has gained such momentum that there are SHGs, there are around more than 10 lakh SHGs running across the country, who are who are not only saving and interloaning, but also they are taking loans for productive purposes. They have increased their livelihoods. So I'm talking about this scheme because all of this happened due to an, an evaluation which took place after the World Bank initially, had launched the pilot scheme for about 3 years, when there was a lot of background research happening. Then pilot studies and baseline assessments were carried out, and then discussions happened at the central level with various stakeholders, and that's how NRLM was designed. And the southern states played a greater role in this, I would say, because the initial implementing partners, the Andhra SRLM or the Tamil Nadu SRLM, who were the pioneer, who by then had become the pioneers in the SHG movement, assisted NRLM, in devising how the project is going to be designed. Does it need to be anything different for any of the states, or does it include, is it universal and can be applied to all of these things were kept in mind when NRLM was launched at a national level. So this is how we understand the role of evaluation. It was evaluation which helped them understand and assess what really worked for those pilot projects that could be taken up in the NRLM ambit, what needs to be eliminated, what could be the possible areas that could be explored further to generate livelihoods. Yeah. So that's all that from our end. I hope we have been able to address all of your queries related to evaluation, gender, transformation, and obviously to understand a little more. It would be good if you get a chance to, if you enroll yourselves for our course, which is the Facilitating Gender Transformative Evaluation course, wherein we talk more about all these concepts and help you apply these, so that in future, if you have to undertake an evaluation, you know how it is to be done.
Yes, this course is open to all who, we have certain criteria which we normally put out. Maybe Sheena, you want to talk a little bit about the course and who
Yeah.
usually.
So the course is currently open for all South Asian countries, and there are two parts to the course. One is for entry level and mid level professionals, and the other one that will be soon coming out will be for the senior professionals, which is for people having more than 10-12 years of experience in the domain. And uh, and this basically is a self-paced course with weekly live sessions that we host with our faculty members. And it's a 10-week course, but for the senior professionals, we'll slightly have a smaller duration, because we understand that it's difficult for senior professionals to devote 10 weeks at a stretch for a course like this. But yeah, the course happens to have a lot of case studies and examples from on ground exercises that we do, and also from some of the assignments that were performed by our faculty members in the past. They make use of them to understand the concepts better and help you understand how to make use of them.
Thank you, Sheena and Alpakshi. And yeah, there are any more questions and queries? Yeah, so Zubin, there is a selection that takes place because we have currently restricted a cohort to consist of about 35 participants, because as Tina said that there is a lot of group work, there is a lot of direct hand holding that the moderator does. So far we have restricted the numbers. There is, in fact, most of the times whenever we have announced, it is oversubscribed, so we've had to decline many of them. Unfortunately, if you haven't heard at all from us, that's a lapse on our part. We normally at least would inform that, okay, you've not made it to this time, better maybe possibly next time. So that's how it is, that currently the batches are kept smaller, because the weekly sessions, the moderators and the module in charge come in and do an interaction. They often do small group conversations and discussions. So far we have kept the number to 35. When is the next batch going to begin? Maybe in a few months. Around maybe May could be possibly one setup that we could look at, May or June maybe. But as we said, we're looking at 2 courses, so we need to figure out how we are going to pace the 2 courses. And because the course is about perspective, it's not something that you can put out. There are tools that you can use on your own. There is feedback to be had, and the module in charge, our resource persons, come and do an interaction. So if you have any clarifications, because all of this is about application, there are a lot of exercises and reading. So there is that element which is there, which is a touch point at every week. So some of the selection criteria we look for is those who have done some work. So while we say early, we avoid people who have had no work experience, because a lot of the application requires that you have to imagine a certain field, or you bring some of your own experiences. So we prefer those who have at least 2 to 3 years of ground level work with communities to come into the course, because then it hones and builds your capability, and then with the course and your own experience become better equipped to take up monitoring and evaluation formal projects or assignments. All right, then for us to say thank you to all of you who stayed on for nearly 2 hours. Thank you so much. And thank you to Yash and Lekha from the back end who have supported us. And a big thank you to Rise to give us this platform. We hope to stay connected.